Hello everybody, welcome to another weekly episode of The Edge. I'm your host for today, Cole McGlumphy. Our topic today is on the Gay-Straight Alliance. The GSA is a group within schools that have kids who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, and straight who come together and fight against bullying. The group was first established back in November of 1988 when a teacher came out as gay and a straight student was upset at the treatment of gay people. So they decided to start their first group that supports people who are victims of sexual orientation harassment. Since then, the GSA has impacted everywhere within the country and outside the United States, such as the UK, Hong Kong, Mexico, Canada, and even in Bulgaria. The group has made people become better leaders, and kids were getting victimized and getting harassed by anyone who considers them different. Today, I'm joined by Ms. Gilroy, a former sponsor of the GSA, who I'm honored to sit down and talk to today about the group and how differences can make an impact in society today. Thank you very much, Ms. Gilroy, for coming in today and talking about this topic. So, as we're starting, I want to talk about bullying in schools. Like, how do kids react to bullying?
How do they react to it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you mean like why is it happening in high schools?
Yeah, like why is bullying such a big problem in high schools?
I think there's a lot of factors. Social media is always the one that everyone points to, and I do think that has a big part to do with it. Also, I think kids' own self-worth and self-esteem often keeps them from being kind to others. And so that's something that, as teachers, we try and work on, I think, with kids, to make everyone feel like they are valued and heard and understood so that people feel like they don't have to take out their own feelings on other kids.
And you just talked about teachers. How did the administrators and teachers react to bullying as well? Like any other kind of ways they can deal or cope with bullying?
Sure. Well, I know that they just initiated recently the Safe to Say program here at school. So that's one way the administration has kind of used that tool to help kids at least report things that they're seeing or hearing that are unkind or considered bullying. I think that's one of the ways.
So you also describe how they started a new group. Also about the GSA, why is the GSA such a place to bring everybody closer together? Possibly.
That's a great question. Well, the GSA stands for Gay-Straight Alliance, so I think alliance is probably the key word there. It allows people who identify various different ways to come together to find a safe space to be able to talk about their fears or issues or things that they're going through without judgment or bias.
And also, their fears they talk about, what kind of, fears exactly do they talk about, in terms of bullying and isolation among society?
I can't speak to them specifically, but I would say that generally it's usually the feeling of being misunderstood or being misrepresented by their peers or even society in general.
That's a really interesting way of putting it and a really nice way of putting it. Another thing I would like to ask is how can basically the GSA be such a relaxing, comfortable place and probably a safe place?
I think when students are in the GSA, they really work at making everyone feel welcome. There's not a lot of room for judgment, and people don't really join the GSA if they're feeling that way. Most students who join the GSA or want to be a part of it either identify as gay, straight, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, LGBTQ basically, or students who are friends with them. It's mostly just a place for students, I think, to have a home base almost.
And considering now, because there's so much going on within the school and with deals of gender and stuff like that, how do you think that would basically inspire them to stand up against bullying exactly?
I think knowing that you have someone in your corner or multiple students who are kind of behind you, who support you and support who you are as a person would probably help them feel like they can stand up for themselves if confronted by someone who's bullying.
And compared to possibly before, if there was like a lot of bullying before the GSA started, how do you think it's now?
I'm not sure what the statistics are as far as beforehand. I myself, having been a teacher for a while now, I do feel like I see less bullying on this front, but I don't see every kid ever. So I would say that keeping people informed and helping people understand things is often the number one way of getting people to work well together, interact well, engage together in less of a bullying way.
That's a perfect way of talking about it. And also, since we're also talking about like how basically there's bullying in schools, and there's also kids like who go through isolation, and why do you think that would also be a huge factor of them being isolated from everybody else?
You mean being bullied, or
just being like, isolated from being bullied or picked on or being considered different?
I think anytime you're made to feel different than other people and then in turn left out or ostracized or bullied, that can be very isolating in general. So I think if you can join an organization, or if you have friends who encourage you to join an organization in which you're welcomed and you're made to feel just like yourself, without judgment or bias, that helps with things like isolation. But I think high school in general can be a pretty isolating time for a lot of people.
And also within the high school, there's so many different aspects of groups, and the GSA basically has become its own social group, and there's so many other social groups.
Sure.
Do you think that the social group of the GSA is impacting more people today, or is it just impacting themselves?
I definitely think they first have a huge effect on each other. I think being in a group in which you feel part of something, understood, loved, all of those things helps you to better engage with your peers and friends. But I also think that making other students who aren't in the group aware kind of helps destigmatize things, and also opens up a lot of experiences for people just to better understand, what the group is, that kind of thing.
What do you think the different kinds of aspects were of the group when they first started?
What do you mean?
Like in terms of the GSA, how it really started here at the high school. How did it start?
I'm not sure. I wasn't here when it started. It started probably over 5 years ago, if not longer.
Okay.
This is only my 4th year here, but I would say that most likely a group of students felt like they could establish something here that would be a safe place and a welcoming place and a safe environment for kids who identify as LGBTQ or kids who are allies.
That's a really good way of putting it, of knowing everybody is in a welcoming place and a welcoming, you're in a safe environment, you're not bullied, and you're not treated differently.
Sure.
Another thing I would also like to talk about is basically how we are how do other people react to the situation? To
the GSA?
To like people who are involved with the GSA, how do you think people react, basically?
I would say that for the most part, the GSA receives a lot of support from students either in the club or even not in the club. I think the GSA probably at this point, it's a well-known thing and a well-known club. It's not like we have to explain what it is. I think there's always going to be people who are uncomfortable, or based on whatever their misconceptions might be, or ideologies. But I think for the most part, students are welcoming and encouraging of others who might be different than them.
And also, I also the Gay Straight Alliance has straight students who also come in to support. Why do straight kids come in? Is it because they have friends who are, or they just want to be supportive and they just want to be, everybody to be equally?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I know from my experience as a sponsor, our students in the GSA who identify as straight are often just friends with the students who identify as LGBTQ. So that's usually the number one motivating factor. Or they have a family member who might identify as LGBTQ, or other friends outside of here. They might know other people in GSAs at other schools. So, it's a very open and welcoming group. So we try to just include everyone.
That's a really good. Also, I like how you're very much including everybody into the group. You're basically treating everybody equally. And are there any points where you would basically talk to other schools, like different clubs?
Mm-hmm. Students in the past have reached out to local high schools in the area who have their own GSAs, and they've done meetups, they've gone to movies, I think they've tried to put on different events together. I'm not sure how successful some of those things have been, but I know that they've definitely met with others. I think social media helps in that way as well, because I know that other GSAs in other schools have Twitters and Instagrams, and kids have been able to communicate that way.
And you also talked about possibly events. What kind of events would they put on?
I know they talked about doing co-school meetups, co-school dances outside of here, finding various activities, whether it would be I know rock climbing was once brought up, almost like things you would do on the weekend with your friends, but you would do it with another GSA.
Oh, that's really nice. We're going to take a break for a little bit, and when we come back, we'll be talking about how you too can stand up and support your fellow students. Hello everybody, welcome back to The Edge. I'm here today with Miss Gilroy. Now, Miss Gilroy, we've talked about bullying, we've talked about different kinds of aspects that students do outside of the high school, like with events. And now another thing is, what kind of effects has the GSA had on everybody part of the GSA fitting in?
I don't know that we seek to make people feel like they fit in. I don't think anyone should feel like they have to fit into a specific social group or, high school identity type thing. I think the GSA helps people feel heard and acknowledged for who they are. And also, I think it encourages students to be themselves, be who you are, own who you are, and you have support from everyone in this club.
That's a really good example and a really good thing of saying we're all equal to each other, and that's how the GSA should be, of everybody basically being equal. And also, are there also more? How did you get a part of it when you first started?
The sponsor had their former sponsor had left the high school, so they asked me to fill in.
What did you do exactly? What did you think the GSA was at first? Did you know what the GSA was? Or?
I did. I had a GSA at my own high school, and that was a really long time ago, so it's been around for quite a while. And I also feel like the first thing I did was meet with students to try and get to know who they were, and feel out how the club ran before I got there.
Wow. So what school did you go to that had the GSA?
A school in New York, so it's not local.
Oh, a nice New York school, huh? And also, You've also talked about like getting to know the students. So
Mm-hmm.
how have you gotten to know the students? Like just having like full blown conversations?
Yeah, our meetings, we would all sit around, kind of do icebreaker type activities, learn about who was in the club, try and see if we could get more people in. I think the second year I did it was our biggest year number-wise. A lot of students wanted to join because we did a lot of in-school things, Day of Silence. A lot of the students went and marched in the parade downtown for that.
So the Pride Parade?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have friends who have actually gone to the Pride Parade and people, and I think also the Pride Parade is also a great example to like, bond with each other.
Sure.
Is that also another event that they also do? Is they go to or just another activity they go to?
We didn't specifically do that as a club, but students went down on their own and met up with their friends and went to, they've done that every year.
So everybody who's been part of GSA has become really good friends ever since.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like any other club, or any other situation in high school, you find a common thing to bond over, or an interest, or in this case, this alliance, and you create bonds with people and friendships, and yeah.
I think really the GSA is also a great example for how we all are today in terms of being true to ourselves and also being who we want to be and
Sure.
not letting anybody else tell us who we are. In your mind, why do you think that's such a great positive feeling to somebody just to be who they are?
I think that anytime someone can feel comfortable in their own skin and not held back by what other people might think of them, I think that alone is a great way to kind of walk through life. I know in high school it's probably the hardest time to feel that way. I also think this is a place where students can kind of start to do things that really interest them personally, and then maybe carry that on to college, where everyone always kind of sheds this idea of who they're supposed to be in high school and really gets to become the person that they feel most comfortable being.
And they've also had groups in college, is that right?
Oh yeah, there's GSAs in colleges all over. So it's once they joined a GSA here, if they go to their school, and after they graduate, they can look for one there.
Also, there's different kinds of also in talking about spreading more about the GSA, have they also had people from outside of the school? I mean, there's also been communication with outside of the school of 2 different GSA groups or more.
Yeah.
And has any of those kids from those GSAs come to this school in terms of meets or no?
No, I don't. Not since I was the sponsor. I'm not sure about beforehand. But I know that they all in the past have communicated through social media and things like that.
And so social media, is there kind of different Instagram page?
Yeah, they've had Twitters, Instagram pages.
That just had the name of the school and then the GSA?
Yeah. I don't remember. I think we had one, it was PTHS GSA. I'm not sure if it's still running. But various local high schools have Twitters as well. So.
Another thing I would also like to talk about is how basically the GSA has also been in terms of being still active, and I know you don't know
I'm
as
not
much.
the sponsor currently, so I'm not sure who's taken over, but I know that the students that were in it before were definitely interested in getting a sponsor and continuing their club. Yeah.
Do you still communicate with any of those students?
Yeah, every day. I mean, there's definitely students who are in GSA or were in the club when I ran it that I still see.
So who are the people? Are there any specific names of people that who were part of the GSA you've become still talk to or
Well, I don't want to, say their names without, them telling me to. But there's still students here that were in GSA previously.
That's good.
Yeah.
And it's nice that you still talk to people even after they graduate and stuff like that. And other things such as how did the administration, want the GSA to be a part of the high school?
I think I wasn't here when the club was founded. I know that there were different guidelines that they had to follow to start a club, and they received support from the administration to do that.
And I think the administration has done a very good job with everything that the GSA has been known for, even throughout the entire country and exactly the world. And I also like how basically you can look at each other today and just say, this person is my friend, I know this person. And I have a lot of friends who also are, bi and gay. Mm-hmm. And, I look at them every single day and I say, you're my friend and I love you, man, and stuff like that.
That's good. It's good to be, it's good to be a friend to anyone who you want to be friends with. But also, if you are an ally to people who feel marginalized in any way based on how they identify, that's always good. More allies is better than...
And there's so many different places that we all, interact, most in theater and choir, and there's also students who are also in different classes with each other, and I think they still communicate to this day, especially in being in the same classes together, which is, I think, and also another way to bond even outside the GSA.
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities to get to know your peers and classmates outside of clubs. I think students just need to often let go of social stereotypes and just be friends with people, because you might share a common bond or interest.
A common bond and an interest is one of my I think it's also one of my life goals, is just sharing a common bond and a common interest with everybody, and then just saying, you're my friend and stuff like that. Sure. And another thing I would also like to talk about, do you guys also go to different types of events? Did they ever go to football games and fundraise?
No, we never did that. We our biggest event was the Day of Silence that we did, where students would in GSA would kind of go throughout the day being completely silent. They had to get permission from their teachers, and it was backed by the administration. And it's basically to represent all of the people who have been silenced based on how they identify, or because of who they're perceived to be, or who, those types of things. So.
I had friends who were in the Day of Silence, and I kind of forgot what the Day of Silence was, and then I had friends who were part, the Day of Silence, and I thought it was, really, really cool. Yeah. And
it's a good event.
Do you guys also have fundraisers, any other fundraisers?
We haven't, that I can think of, but I'm sure that there are plenty of opportunities for the GSA to continue to, create events, fundraise, things like that.
So, what kind of fundraiser exactly do you, if they ever had the chance to make?
I'm not sure. I don't know. It would be anything that could raise money or awareness for the GSA. So, just like any school fundraiser, they can work together to try and raise money, to organize an event, any of those things, to donate things.
And we've also talked about bullying and also all kinds of different things within the high school and isolation and such. And another thing I would like to ask is, how do you think that even without the GSA that the school would be now, possibly, in terms of bullying or isolation without the GSA?
I think you'll find bullying and isolation probably in any school setting. I think that's just the nature of high school, but I think the more informed you can make students, the more compassion and kindness and empathy that you can put out, and then in turn show students that that is a nice way to go about being a human being and being kind to others, that the less you might find. I think having a GSA provides a safe haven for a lot of students who may feel bullied or isolated. So I think it's always a positive thing. But at the end of the day, I mean, we should all just be kind to one another. I know there was a movement, that It Gets Better movement, that spoke to bullying, and a lot of people made videos that kept saying it gets better, and I think that has had a long-lasting impact on a lot of people, because high school and middle school and this time frame in a lot of people's lives can be tricky and to navigate, and so the idea that it always gets better is one to stick with.
That's really amazing. I would like to thank you very much for coming in today and talking about this subject. You've been a really good, informative guest, and we would also like to thank everybody at home for watching. My name's Cole McGlumphy, and we'll be seeing you next time on The Edge. Thank you.